Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys about something that I do talk about fairly often on here, but it's something that people need to understand. And yes, I'm doing a bunch of rep work on accessory movements in the background, kind of to highlight my point. And my point here is that every time this topic of powerlifting comes up, or the big three, and this is something that needs to be made very, very clear, and it's funny because I made a post about this the other day on my private Facebook, and quite a few very, very well-known strength and conditioning coaches kind of clicked a like on it, kind of saying the same thing. In other words, giving their nod, but technically I'm right. Powerlifting is nothing more than a test of strength. That's literally all it is. And if we picked three similar lifts that were also low skill, and you were to take random people, the same 10 people would place in the same order. Like if you took the big three out and we tested a clean to a strict press with a 2-inch deficit deadlift on a trap bar and a dead stop safety bar squat out of the bottom off the pins. Same 3 people or same 10 people would basically score the same, almost the exact same 10 placings. Random people who go to the gym and lift would score the exact same ranking against each other. There would be very, very little deviation. Why? Because the big three aren't skill-based lifts. They're a test of strength. And people who say, well, no, they're a test for shorter guys. No, that's only for weight classes. When we talk about weight classes, height matters. But a 6'5" guy has the total to deadlift and squat and bench more than a 5'4" guy does if they put their absolute potential into both. It's just a test of strength. It's just that shorter guys have a big advantage pound for pound. But there's minimal skill, and here's what I mean. If you take the big three and you combine them together, and you take a guy who got brutally big and brutally strong on other lifts, and he has almost no experience with them, but he's good at maxing out. Like let's say he's maxed out routinely on 10 other exercises and has never done a traditional squat, bench, or deadlift. And you teach him the rules to that. You teach him how to do them, and you let him ramp up on them, and you put him into a powerlifting meet, and he can follow the rules. If he is brutally strong, he's going to get a good total. Okay? If he is strong top to bottom. If his entire body is strong, well developed, he has a good grip, that's important, and he knows how to max out. He has practiced ramping up to maxes on a number of other exercises. Okay? And that is a simple fact. People can argue about specificity, and yes, specificity matters. Look, learning to bench correctly will make your bench better. Learning to squat correctly will make your squat better. No one is arguing that. But it matters a hell of a lot less than people think it does. In other words, if you take an athlete who has a 1600 total, you take someone who has a 1600 total in a powerlifting meet, and you make him unlearn all of his technique and just use kind of bad form on all of his lifts, does anyone out there think he's really only going to total 1300? In other words, let's say he uses a decent arch and leg drive and all that on the bench, and you make him just go flat back and just brute press it up. Okay? Let's say you don't let him use his ideal foot position on the squat. Don't let him use his ideal foot position on the squat. You make him do a different form of deadlift than he's used to doing. If he normally pulls sumo, you have him pull conventional. If he pulls conventional, have him pull sumo. You take away his skill advantage in practice. Does anyone out there think he's actually going to lose 300 pounds on his total? No, he's probably going to lose 10%. He's going to lose 10%. Maybe. Because you know why? For the advanced lifter who already has good neuromuscular efficiency, body composition, muscle fiber distribution, and neuromuscular efficiency basically determine how much you can lift on these lifts. All right? Technique only accounts for maybe 5 to 10% of your lift. In other words, a guy who can just walk over and just flat back, straight up bench without finding his ideal grip, without using leg drive, who can just straight up bench 400 pounds, could probably, without getting bigger or stronger, could maybe learn to press 440 with really good practice and someone teaching him. Okay? But he's still a 400-pound bencher without knowing how to do the lift that well. And it's the same with all these lifts. And that's what people need to understand. It is not a high-skill sport. So people who come up with these ideas that, well, it's all about specificity of training, or power lifters aren't really strong, they're only, they know how to do these lifts. Well, that accounts for a small amount of it. And here's what else I would say. The people who are making those excuses who are weak at these lifts, you might want to consider that you're just actually weak. And I'm not saying that being maximally strong is the be-all end-all, or that should be everyone's goal. But what I'm saying is, stop pretending that you're not weak. Okay? If you're not good at the big three, it's because you're weak. They're not complicated lifts. And any person who is really strong can do all of them. And that kind of highlights what I do these days with my training, why I promote the system of training, why I've said, and why this has been noted by many coaches, that the system of training I even use these days works for every sport. One of the side effects of it is that it makes you maximally strong at a wide variety of lifts. And a lifter who is maximally strong at a wide variety of lifts, and who has good body composition and good conditioning and good work capacity so they can train really hard, probably going to have a pretty good total. And anyone who's in denial of that should really think that through. Do you really think that if you were to take some really strong world-class sprinters and teach them how to squat, bench, and deadlift, that they wouldn't be good at it? You don't think they would be really, really strong at it, even relative to their body weight? I bet you they would. You don't think you could take a group of Olympic lifters, weightlifters, who compete at least beyond the national level? You don't think even if they don't perform the traditional squat, bench, and deadlift, that you couldn't just teach them how to do them real quick and they wouldn't have really good totals? There have been cases of Olympic lifters who don't practice the bench press, who've gone to the gym with power lifters and walked over and benched over 400 pounds, who don't even do the exercise. Hey, do you honestly think if you were to take an NFL player who's strong and jacked, who is a serious, strong, powerful athlete, because usually if you got an NFL contract, you're usually reasonably strong and powerful person. Tends to go with the territory. You don't think if they walked into powerlifting, they wouldn't have a really, really good squat, bench, and deadlift? Of course they would. So my point here is that this idea is ludicrous and is dogmatic. It's ludicrous and it's dogmatic. And I'm actually saying that even if someone wants to get good at the squat, bench, and deadlift, once you've built a base, you don't have to devote all your time to them. You get stronger at them with other lifts. It's not necessary. Now, do I promote them for novice lifters? People are like, well, you just said they're not necessary, right? They're not necessary. But they're really good choices because they're big exercises. In between the squat, bench, and deadlift, almost every muscle in your body gets trained. For the same reason that they're a good test of strength, they're also a good foundational lift for the novice lifter. They're really, really good at it. And we have a lot of coaching out there towards them. Really good material available to teach people how to perform these exercises and how to program them. Therefore, doing something different just for the sake of doing something different could be reducing your results, right? Because you're just looking at it from the wrong idea. So there's a difference between pushing that for novices and saying, look, these are easy lifts to get strong at. They're good lifts to build a base on. Go ahead and just do it. There's no downside. But we can conversely come back around and say, people who have built a base from the other direction, people who are really jacked and really strong, are going to be good at all three of them, even if they don't train them. And that's rather the point that I'm trying to make with this. And that's also the point of when I say that the powerlifting is a low skill sport. It is a test of brute strength. And it is a legitimate test of brute strength because it tests every muscle in the body. The deadlift is an equal test of upper and lower body strength. Bench press is a test of upper body strength with a small amount of lower, and squat is a lower body dominant test of strength that uses a little bit of upper body. Because of the variation in them, different limb lengths have different advantages at different ones. So if you're good at one due to disproportionate limb lengths, you're probably going to be slightly weaker at another. So the advantages and disadvantages tend to disappear. And as far as height, yes, height impacts them massively, but only as it applies to weight class. It doesn't impact your maximum potential. It impacts your pound for pound strength. So people just need to end this nonsense. They need to end it. It's just not based on reality or what we know from athletes. And this thing works in all directions. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.